I have yet to find a superhero that rivals Spawn. Not only does Spawn look awesome, but his superpowers are awesome, and his story, in my opinion, is the most interesting part about Spawn, and it's also what makes it so great, at least in my opinion. Spawn gets sent to hell for his actions on Earth. He is an assassin, and he's betrayed by an associate, and his life is snuffed out early. And he winds up in hell, where he meets a demon named Malbolgia, and he cuts a deal with Malbolgia so that he can see his wife Wanda again. Now, after Spawn cuts this deal, and he's back on Earth, he has a real hard time integrating with the fact that he's a Hellspawn. Now, one of the things that I find most interesting about the comics and the animated series, the story in general about Spawn, is that there is a battle between good and evil, and Spawn has to make a decision. He can either stay a Hellspawn, or over a period of time, he can redeem himself, like Cogliostro. Cogliostro is a former Hellspawn that in the comics, in the story, in the animated series, you'll find that Cogliostro managed to not give in to the temptation of his hellish ways as a Hellspawn, and over a period of time, he redeems himself. So you see, guys, there's a battle between heaven and hell in Spawn, and I find it really interesting. I also find it interesting that there's multiple kind of like Archon characters, right? For instance, the clown. The clown influences people to do evil things so that he can gain more, make hell's army bigger by making people sin to the point where they get sent to hell. So you'll see this in the first animated series on HBO. You'll see the clown meet with Billy Kincaid and influence him to keep doing the disgusting things that he's doing. In a sense, the clown is like an Archon, but there's also good forces, you guys. Cogliostro, I think, is the most interesting character in Spawn other than Spawn, because Cogliostro, he's a sorcerer for one. He managed to crawl his way out of hell. I don't mean that literally, but he managed to change his ways, and over a period of time, he dropped being a Hellspawn. And he tries to help Al Simmons, who is Spawn, in the story to do this. And I find it fascinating, you guys. The one thing I love so much about the Spawn animated series is that the battle between good and evil, and I see a lot of Gnostic tones to this. A lot of Gnostic tones. The Spawn animated series, I've said this once and I'll say it again, it is my favorite animated series, hands down. The gritty feel to it, and the way that you actually feel Spawn or Al Simmons struggles between good and evil, it's remarkable. I don't think we'll ever get something like that again. Someone recently asked me what my favorite of the 3 seasons was. I think season 3. Because in season 3, you really get to meet Cogliostro, who, again, was sent to hell for his actions. And after a period of time, he started to change, and he redeemed himself. And in the 3rd animated series, the season, he really tries to help Spawn drop the hell Spawn, just all of it, right? It's fascinating. You really get to see the struggle. And I also find it really interesting that Cogliostro is like hundreds of years old, and that at one point in time, people referred to him while he was on Earth as Merlin. Cogliostro was a sorcerer. He used sorcery to like redeem himself and go back into the light, if you will. You see, there's a battle between heaven and hell. There's angels in this story too, you guys. So in a sense, like, we're all Spawn in a way, because we all have these negative traits that need to be evolved. We're not perfect, guys. That's part of being a human, being in this flesh suit. So I just see so much Gnosticism in the Spawn story, and I don't know if Todd McFarlane was pulling from Gnosticism, etc., but it's relative. It's relatable to the subject, and I find that really interesting. You have this demon that controls, or doesn't control, but largely influences Al Simmons' life, and he has these like little Archon characters like the Violator, aka the Clown, that they come into the world and try to influence people to do bad things so that he can so that Malbolgia, excuse me, I can't speak today, his army, his Hellspawn army can grow larger and larger, because there is a battle between good and evil, and Malbolgia is trying to gain as many soldiers as he can so that he can try to defeat the forces of good. So guys, there's angels in the story, there's devils, there's the concept of God within the Spawn universe as well, and this particular God very rarely intercedes with or into the world of daily human affairs, etc. It's kind of like the monad in a sense, but underneath the monad there's these angels and these aeons, etc., that do interject or come into the world of humans, etc., to help them, etc. So you really get to see the battle between good and evil, and I really fucking love that. I think that the 90s animation style was so good, it's so nostalgic, and sadly I don't think we're ever going to get it back. You saw similar animations in the 90s Batman animated series, but there's just nowhere near as much violence and gore and just drama as you're going to find in the Spawn animated series. So Cogliostro is such a fascinating character. I'm going to start doing Spawn lore in the future because I've been a big fan of Spawn since the 90s. I grew up collecting the toys and the comics, etc. And the trading cards, you name it, posters. Spawn is awesome. Unfortunately, we've never really gotten a good Spawn video game, and there's really not a very good Spawn movie. The best is the Spawn animated series. I can't remember, I think it was 2008. Was it 2000? No, it couldn't be 2008. I can't remember when the Spawn movie came out in theaters. And although I like it because I'm a Spawn fan, you guys, it's definitely not as good as it should be. There was a Sega Dreamcast Spawn game that flopped. There was some Game Boy Advance stuff, I think. There was a PlayStation 1 Spawn game, I think a PlayStation 2 game. And unfortunately, these games were rushed to meet publication deadlines, and the controls are clunky. They're just not good. So hopefully in the future, you guys will get a good Spawn video game. I think within the next year or so, there's a new Spawn movie coming out. But in my opinion, you guys, it just looks like garbage. And from what I've read, Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn, he's at the behest of the funding. So he has to kind of listen to the directive of the people putting the money into the project. And from what I've read, he's had to like circumvent all these things that he wants to do. He's had to let go. He's basically not able to be the sole like creative force, if you will, in the script, in the movie. So if that's the case, you guys, just like most new movies, it's probably going to flop. Luckily, we have the animated series that's a time capsule of when Spawn was great. Spawn still is great, the action figures, etc., the comics, but I don't think we're ever going to get a really good Spawn movie. Maybe we will. There's even talk that Todd McFarlane wants to bring the animated series back. So if that's the case, I'm really on board for that. But guys, watch the Spawn animated series with a kind of a Gnostic set of glasses on, metaphorically speaking. Look at the stories as if it's a Gnostic tale. And if you do that, you guys, you'll find that this animated series is not only beautifully done, but it's also highly educational, because we're all caught in the battle between good and evil. We live in a world of opposites, you guys, where we're trying to walk the middle pillar and, achieve balance. And Cogliostro is like, he's the epitome of that. Again, you guys, he was known at one point in time as Merlin. He kind of has Tahuti vibes. Toth vibes. Now, I'm not saying that that's what McFarlane was aiming at, but it's really interesting. Although Tahuti never committed acts of debauchery like Cogliostro did at one point. But guys, long story short, make sure to check the animated series out if you haven't done so already. The clown is a perfect example of an Archon. Perfect example. How he tries to influence people, bring people to do things that cause them to lose their soul, right? So that they can get trapped in the material realm or trapped in hell. Fascinating stuff. Anyways, my battery's about to go out, you guys. Check out the Spawn animated series. I suggest getting it on DVD. There's free copies online that you can find, but as always, I always suggest supporting, like, physical media is much better than streaming. In many cases, and this may sound hypocritical because I have all sorts of streamable data or content here on YouTube, but when it comes to movies, when it comes to, I like collecting the physical media. Streaming is only good, guys, or you're only really able to stream unless you download it to your device if you have a fucking internet connection. That's one of the things I hate about streamable media. Without the internet, you can't have it. It's so much better to have a physical item in your collection. So anyways, you guys, until next time, may peace be with you all.